The interior of a cozy, old-timey room can be observed. Suddenly, someone drops from the roof and runs toward a wall with a 10-digit puzzle, requiring a 4-digit combination to get through. One of the walls begins moving in toward him, and he panics as he searches for clues. He believes he's found it in a book, but then he falls on the ground. He interprets the clue on 4 paintings in the room, but the wall is coming closer. The combination he enters doesn't work, so he starts panicking even more, screaming that there's no way out. His leg gets crushed by the wall. 3 days earlier, Zoe can be seen walking to school. She's in class when the instructor asks about the quantum Zeno effect. She's written down the answer in her notebook, but struggles to get her hand up to answer. The bell rings and the instructor dismisses the class, but calls Zoe over to speak with her. He tells her that her paper was great, and he tries to help her emerge from her shell by asking her to do one thing that frightens her over the break. A motorcycle arrives in a business area, then we see Jason talking on the phone in his office, finalizing a business deal. His assistant informs him he has another call, which Jason thinks is about a client offering him a gift. He's right and feels great about it. Ben is tagging groceries in the back of a store when his boss comes in. He asks him for a new job position, but he doesn't want to offer it to him. His boss tells him to stop drinking if he wants to progress. Back at Jason's office, a gift arrives for him in the form of a black box that looks like it can't be easily opened. Jason believes his client sent it to him. Zoe returns to her room and talks to her roommate, who isn't impressed by her nerdy monologue and leaves. She's nervous and trying to calm herself when it looks like her mirror is vibrating. She experiences something like airplane turbulence, when suddenly she wakes from a nightmare, her roommate asking if she's okay. Before Zoe's roommate departs for the holidays, she finds a parcel in front of their room addressed to her and gives it to her, saying it's from her professor. The same black box is in her parcel too. Ben arrives at work early and sees one of the black boxes waiting for him. He attempts to open it by hitting it and throwing it, when it suddenly opens by itself, and he continues the process. Meanwhile, Zoe also tries to open the box and she figures it out quite quickly. At the same time, Jason watches YouTube videos to help him open the box. The 3 of them succeed in opening the box when a piece of paper emerges from it. It's a voucher for a Minus escape room, which if escape would win them $10,000. The next day, Ben is waiting in front of the Minus building, smoking, when a car parks behind him. Amanda exits, and they have a brief conversation when she notices him about smoking. She walks inside and gives the guard her ID as well as her phone. Before she enters the elevator, he thanks her for her service in the army. Danny enters the elevator with her. At the last moment, he pulls out a phone which he has sneaked in. Amanda enters the waiting room first, where Mike, Jason, and Zoe are already seated. She goes to the reception desk, but the others tell her not to worry. Danny arrives second to her, as Mike is ranting about a childhood pet with heterochromia. Jason and Danny have a discussion about the scar on Jason's hand, and Amanda asks Zoe if they recognize each other because she seems familiar to her. Ben enters last and greets everyone. Amanda reads a newspaper about a fire and becomes nervous. Danny tells the others that he has been to 93 escape rooms before. Jason jokes about that, but Mike tells Danny that his nephew is just like him and that he was the one who recommended he try the Minus room. Amanda says she's only there for the money. Danny explains to the others how the rooms usually work, and Zoe asks how the game begins. He tells her that they have to wait for the game's master to take them to the escape room. Ben stands up to smoke another cigarette, but the door handle breaks off when he touches it. Mike goes over to try and repair it, but Danny believes that they are already in the escape room. He approaches the door and sees the oven knob. He says that it's probably a combination lock, so he tells everyone to search for clues. Everyone looks around the room. Zoe notices a mug with an airplane, and Amanda finds the name Dr. Wootenyu, believing it might be a clue. Mike picks up a copy of Fahrenheit 451 and discovers a screwdriver hidden inside. Zoe thinks that 451 might be the combination to the lock and inputs it into the door. Suddenly, the ceiling starts flashing red. They realize it's actually emitting heat too. Zoe tries to turn off the knob, but it's stuck. Danny says that they can request a hint, so Amanda goes to ask at the reception. Jason finds a globe with a boat, which distracts him for a moment, but then notices the lock on the window. Ben wants to break the window with a fire extinguisher, but when he sees that it's fake, he throws it away. The 4 columns in the room start warming up too. Everyone is panicking, except Danny, and Zoe finds a key in the extinguisher. She unlocks the window, and they see that the receptionist is actually a mannequin. Suddenly, the phone rings, and they all expect Jason to answer. The message is automated, stating they should follow the rules. When he drops the phone, the window shutters go up and more heaters appear. Zoe and Amanda go to get some water because Amanda is having an anxiety attack. Zoe notices the burns on her neck. The men are searching for clues, but have no idea what to do as the room is getting hotter. Zoe notices another clue about the coasters on the table. She rushes over to it and presses one of them, which reveals an exit in the ducts. The exit opens slightly, so they all have to press the coasters simultaneously to open it completely. Jason goes into the duct and finds a way out. He needs the screwdriver that Mike has, so Amanda trades places with him and lets him through. Jason unlocks the other exit. The others send Amanda next through the vent, while they hold the coasters with both hands. Zoe gets another idea about the puzzle. She fills a glass of water and places it on the coaster, pressing it down. In. Meanwhile, Amanda freaks out as she's crawling through the duct. She has a recollection from her time in Afghanistan. Zoe hears her yell, and the others tell her to go after Amanda. Danny and Ben fill the glasses with water, but they're half a glass short. They quarrel, and a burner descends in the room. Ben pours his alcohol into the glass, and the exit unlocks. They flee at the last moment as the room catches fire. They leap through the fireplace into the next room. Danny is still thrilled, thinking it's all still a harmless game, but Amanda believes that it was all real and wants to leave. Jason discovers another lock, and Danny tries to persuade Amanda not to call the police. He still gives her the phone, but there's no reception. Meanwhile, Zoe and Jason are searching for clues, and he finds the first key to one of the locks on the door. Then he finds the second lock on the door, which requires a 7-letter term to open. They all try to solve the terms when Ben notices animal skulls on the wall. He has a recollection in which he's driving intoxicated with his friends and sings Christmas songs. He tells the others to try with Rudolph, and it works. Jason opens the door and they begin walking outside of the house, but Zoe and Ben remain behind. When the 2 of them exit the house, it locks behind them. The next room appears to be outdoors, and it's extremely cold. Danny hits his head on the walls of the room, which are large screens. He falls on the ice, and it sounds like it's cracking. Danny is still still convinced that the room is safe. Freezing air starts blowing through the vents. He tells the others to search for clues again. Jason is the one to find the door. Zoe notices the phrase, "True North is a lie," carved on a sled. At the same time, Mike discovers a fishing rod on a tree, and Ben is attempting to light a cigarette. Amanda finds a coat and says that they'll divide it, then hands it to Zoe. Ben falls into a fishing hole, and Danny suggests that there could be a clue in the water. Suddenly, Mike brings the fishing rod over. While the rest of them are trying to solve the puzzle, Zoe finds a compass in the coat pocket. She follows it north, but remembers what she read on the sled and goes the opposite direction. Zoe discovers another clue in the mouth of a stuffed bear and returns to the group as Ben walks away to smoke his cigarette away from them. Zoe attaches the clue, which is a magnet, to the fishing line, and Mike drops it inside again. Jason asks for the coat. Mike gets something on the rod, but it's quite heavy. They pull out a frozen block with the key inside. Jason asks for Ben's lighter, and he throws it to them, prompting Danny to retrieve it. When he gets the lighter and turns around, he falls into the water and beneath the ice. The others see him and attempt to break the ice to rescue him. Eventually, they lose sight of him and he drowns. Jason gives Amanda the coat, saying she was right that the game is real. Mike and the group confront Ben, thinking that it's his fault that Danny fell. They believe he's the game's master. He starts insulting all of them, but Jason stops him and tells them that it's more important to survive. Then he tells them that they should use their body warmth to extract the key from the ice. The temperature drops in the room. Jason has a flashback of himself on a boat with his friend wearing a red coat. Mike faints, but Jason retrieves the key. They find the door and it opens behind them. As they start moving toward it, the ice breaks and they leap inside at the last moment again. The next room is a bar where everything is inverted. The room begins to rise, and when it halts, the phone rings. Mike walks under the phone and it falls into his hand. There's a deafening sound and then music starts playing. Jason notices the door to the other room, but it's missing a doorknob. Mike observes the 8-ball from the pool table is gone and starts searching for clues when the noise returns, and Ben stops him from falling because a piece of the floor collapses. Amanda climbs the bar and discovers a lockbox with 4 digits. Zoe finds a sliding puzzle on the adjacent wall and climbs over the gap to reach it. Mike climbs over to her side as well and assists her up. While she is working on the puzzle, another section of the floor collapses, nearly taking Jason with it. Ben leaps over to the puzzle side, and Zoe eventually solves it. They determine how to interpret it and obtain a 4-digit code, but it doesn't work when Amanda inputs it into the lockbox. Another section of the floor gives way, and Mike and Ben cling to the puzzle, but their weight causes it to start tipping. Mike is too frightened to climb off, so Zoe does it and falls onto the floor, striking her head. They all urge her to get up as she has a flashback of an airplane crash she was involved in. Calling out to her mother, Jason revives her and helps her back to the wall. Zoe suggests Amanda try the code in reverse, and it works. Amanda finds the doorknob inside the lockbox. Another section of the floor falls away. Amanda leaps to the pool table in an attempt to reach the other side, but drops the knob on the final part of the floor. As she falls as well, the noise resumes, so she throws the knob to Jason and clings to the phone, swinging over the gap. She loses her grip and falls. Jason opens the door, and Mike follows him. Ben gets Zoe into the next room and stays with her to comfort her. The following room resembles a hospital. They all begin searching through the room when they realize that all of the hospital beds look familiar. They are the same beds they had when they were in the hospital. Zoe checks one of the other beds and sees that it's Amanda's. She was the only survivor of an explosion. Zoe shares her own story as well. She was the only survivor of a plane crash. Jason was the sole survivor of a boating accident. His story is that his friend lost his sanity due to hypothermia and swam away. Ben reveals that he, too, was the only survivor of a car crash, and Mike was the sole survivor of a mining accident. He has a flashback of the mine. As he tells them that his brother died in that accident, they start linking all of their accidents to everything in the rooms. Zoe discovers Danny's documents. He was also a sole survivor in an accident. She believes that the game is about survival, to determine who is the luckiest of the luck. The TV begins playing and shows a countdown to escape the room. The 3 men start searching for ways to exit the room. They find x-rays as clues, which Ben realizes are actually sign language, and they signify EKG. Zoe starts smashing the cameras, believing that if they keep monitoring them, the group won't be able to succeed. Jason discovers the poison that will be released into the room when the countdown ends, and then finds the EKG machine, stating that the correct heartbeat will open the doors. First, he tries Ben's heart rate, but when it fails, he persuades Mike to try as well. Mike's heart rate is high, but not high enough. Jason decides to shock him to elevate his heart rate and manages to convince Mike to go along with it. He raises Mike's rate, but ends up killing him. Ben attempts to revive Mike as the poison starts filling the room, and Zoe continues breaking the cameras. Jason attaches the EKG to himself and lowers his heart rate sufficiently. The door opens. Jason exits, but Zoe refuses to leave. Ben follows Jason out through the vents as the door closes. Zoe is suffocating and crawls towards an oxygen mask. Jason and Ben reach the next room and begin arguing. Ben accuses Jason of not only killing Mike, but also his friend from the boat. Jason tells him that survival is a choice and continues searching for clues, discovering a hatch. They both grab onto the hatch and open it. Suddenly, they begin to hallucinate. The handle was coated with poison, and the puzzle on the hatch instructs them to find an antidote. Ben discovers the antidote, but there is only 1 dose. Jason attacks him, and they fight for it. Ben ultimately kills Jason and injects himself with the antidote. Ben leaps into the other room. It turns out to be the same room from the beginning of the film. Meanwhile, the cleaning crew enters the hospital room and thinks they found 2 bodies. They notice the oxygen mask hanging from the ceiling when Zoe suddenly awakens and knocks them both down. She grabs a gun from one of them and exits the room. At the same time, Ben is in the other room, having tampered with the code. He climbs into the fireplace as the wall closes in and manages to escape the room. When he enters the new room, a disembodied voice starts speaking to him, revealing that their bets were on Jason. The game's master appears and tells Ben that he has won. Ben antagonizes him, but the man begins explaining the purpose of the game. The patrons of the game are actually the most influential people on the planet, seeking entertainment with genuine risks. The man tells Ben that he didn't think it was possible for him to win as he hands him a cigarette. Then, he attempts to kill Ben, but Ben suddenly stabs him with the piece of wood that had been lodged in his leg. The monitor reveals that Zoe and the man are still in play, and she emerges, shooting at him. The man tackles her and nearly kills her, but Ben intervenes, knocking him down and then shooting him. Both Ben and Zoe exit the building. The next day, Ben is in the hospital and is in stable condition. Zoe is seen sitting by his bedside. A detective enters the room and asks Zoe to come with him. He takes her to the Minus building, which is surrounded by officers. When they enter, no trace of the rooms remains. The detective is skeptical of her claims about the escape rooms because they haven't found any evidence. 1427. She sees the words, "No way out," and realizes that it's an anagram for Dr. Wooten. But the detective doesn't care and tells her they need to leave. 6 months later, Ben and Zoe are having coffee. She shows him a file she's put together about the rest of their group and how their deaths were made to look like accidents. He tells her that she needs to let it go, but she continues explaining what she has found out about the game. 1447. Zoe had deciphered the logo and found out that it was the coordinates to a building in Manhattan. She's even bought the two of them plane tickets to get there. Ben doesn't like her plan, but ultimately agrees to go with her. A plane whooshes through the air with one engine on fire. A stewardess is looking for a clue and finds it in a bag. The tool doesn't unlock the cockpit door, but reveals another puzzle. As the two stewards attempt to solve it, a third one instructs the passenger to brace for impact. The other two decipher the code and enter the cockpit, only to discover the pilot's deceased. The stewardess tries to fly the plane, but it crashes. Suddenly, two individuals appear, making it clear that the plane crash was a simulation. A disembodied voice informs one of the participants from the simulation that Zoe's and Ben's tickets were intercepted and that the game proceeds.